Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with Black Ice, and of course we're playing as Britain in this series. And I just want to thank all of you watching. I really do appreciate everyone who watches the channel. I still find it surprising so many people want to watch me play these games. Okay, so let's see, this is the 39 row. New Blenheims, I don't know. Okay, what I think we're going to do is come over here and disperse fighting. We'll do that. Okay, we've almost caught up on our cruiser tank needs. We're getting a little better for carrier bombers. Root infantry equipment, very nice. Okay, so mostly what they were doing, I would say, with some of the later models, that's the jungle carbine. This rifle number 4 Mark 1, I think, really is just a manufacturing simplification slash rationalization. The Enfield is such an evolutionary weapon, and there's a lot of sort of unnecessary elements to the production of it. So yeah, I don't know that they really get any better in fighting. In the jungle carbine, I don't know if any of you have ever shot one. There's a lot of recoil for a very light weapon, and which makes shooting it not as fun as other weapons. So I don't know that it's an improvement. Now, it's an improvement carrying it around. And now, real soldiers, not guys like me who go to the range and shoot, but real soldiers, they got to carry that weapon around all the time, and then once in a while shoot it. So carrying it is maybe a more important metric than the shooting impact of it. And so, yeah, in a hot jungle environment where you're going to have relatively close ranges, yeah, the jungle carbine makes sense, but I don't know that it's a combat improvement outside of that. Okay, I want a lot more tanks. Are we producing any infantry tanks? No, apparently not. Okay, well, let's put the Matilda into production then. Get the cruiser. We're going to switch over to the Matilda 2 once we get it. Yeah, production of it. Yeah, France, you're just going to be on your own. We have too few of them, man. Grand assault, very nice. Operational support, we won't do this. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, beam sun. That's where I was going to. Yeah. Yeah, but you're right about you carry a weapon more often. But I'm trying because I've shot a bunch of Enfields as well as other bolt action rifles. Going, I don't know that if wandering around Europe, and of course sometimes you're mad dashing from one bit of cover to the next bit of cover and all of that. I don't know, really going down to the jungle carbine is a good idea for the cartridge that you're shooting. And of course Britain doesn't think it's a good idea either. That's because the jungle carbine's much more of a Australian thing for fighting in the jungles. And they want to go to a much lighter cartridge, but the Americans sort of forced them to go to 308, which is more powerful. I forget what the British cartridge was. I got a box of it somewhere. That was basically adopted by almost nobody. But they wanted to go down to a much lighter cartridge. So I don't know that it's really that much of an improvement. Okay, Operation Ultra, yes. Bletchley Park, we're going to do that. That should do. Now I know we're not really playing because we had one of our guys capture Cypher, close, risky. We lost somebody, I think. So M16 in jungle, not optimal. Too light a bullet. No, I disagree with you. I'm fairly knowledgeable with firearms. I've read a lot on the different fighting campaigns. I remember reading about, I think it was a Marine in Vietnam that was with, his platoon, and he was sort of the one guy in the platoon that had a M14, where like everybody else in his Marine platoon had a M16. And they would sort of, call him, get him when, as they're sort of fighting. Whenever there was like a VC behind a thick tree, and these are fairly thick teak or whatever hardwood trees that are in Vietnam, and he'd just sort of crawl up, move up, whatever, and start putting a few rounds right center mass in the tree once it was identified to him where the VC was, and you'd see a VC fall over because it would the M14, the 308, would go through it where the M16s that they were mostly in cover wouldn't. And so that tells me that most of the time the M16 is doing just fine. I've read a lot of people that think the M1 carbine is too lightweight for proper combat service. Some of them are, at least one of the references I know, mainly the guy fought in the Italian campaign as some sort of special warfare type soldier, and thought the M1 carbine was just too lightweight, so he carried an M1 Garand. And I think a lot of the engagement ranges are enough distance that the M1 carbine is a bit light. Now, the M1 carbine is designed as a replacement for the pistol, not the battle rifle. Now, they end up using it as a battle rifle, particularly the paratroopers, who also carried M1 Garands as a main weapon too. And there were a lot of soldiers who really liked the M1 carbine because it was the assault rifle of its day for the U.S. Armed Forces. So so engagement types, and then I've read a lot about the M1 carbine used in places like El Salvador fairly favorably. I don't know that it's too light. It just doesn't have that sort of hard knockdown power. And it's a slightly heavier, bigger bullet going much slower than the 223. No, I think on balance, because you have the sort of two options. Well, I guess three options. You have a battle rifle cartridge, something like 308, 30-06. And that's fine, and that's good, and that's appropriate. But for the assault rifle, you determine that you need assault rifles for multiple reasons, but one of them is ammunition carrying loadout. And you have two basic options as far as I can understand it. Is a lower powered, slightly lighter, but same basic diameter as the battle cartridge option. That would be what the Germans did with the 7.92 Kurz round that they did for the Sturmgewehr. It's basically the same bullet that's coming out of that gun. It might be a slightly shorter bullet, but the same diameter of bullet coming out of that as the German World War I and World War II rifle caliber ammunition, machine gun ammunition. Same bullet, just less powder behind it. Or the Soviet Kalashnikov 7.62 by 39 instead of 7.62 by 54. So you've reduced the cartridge size, same bullet coming out. So the bullet's coming out slower. So it has a greater arc as you shoot out. And as explained by some point blank range is, like if all these people are here, if you have a high arc and if you shoot, you hit this guy, but it go over the heads of these two guys and then hit this woman out here. That's something like more like with a pistol or something at sort of longish ranges. But point blank means that when you shoot, you can shoot here and it would hit all these people. Now, some of the people it would hit, say, in the chest, and then because the bullet would arc up, and we don't mean go through all these people, but I mean if they're all sort of spaced out, it would arc up a little bit and maybe do some headshots, and then come back down and hit lower abdomen. But you don't have to like adjust your aim for the height of the person. That's the idea of point blank. And so a World War I or World War II rifle, a battle rifle as and many come to call it, has a very long point blank range, meaning you don't really, for a standing soldier that you're hitting, torso, and I'm not talking about hitting legs, but hitting the torso, sort of the head, you have a point blank. Now, so like if there's just a head peeking over the trench out at 100, 150 yards, yeah, you got to pay attention to the, to your range, because you hold a little high or hold a little low or whatever, because you only have such a small target. But if you're talking about a guy standing out there, you've got 150, 200 yard or more point blank range, meaning you just point it at the person and you're going to hit them so long as you're basically on target and they haven't moved. You're going to, that's a lot of stuff that could go wrong, trust me. But it just, you can hold center mass on it and shoot the person. You don't have to pay attention to range. Once you're starting to get into the AK-45 ammo, you start having to pay attention to that range. Now, with the U.S. wanted to do was a light, fast bullet to have a very flat trajectory. And so they wanted that point blank range to be out there a lot longer. And that's the other way to do it, because 223 is just a 22 caliber bullet. Now it's a longer bullet, and it has a proper copper jacket on it, compared to like a 22 long rifle light bullet. I know I'm going in the weeds for a lot of people, but so it's a really high velocity round. Now, once it starts hitting serious obstacles, and it is actually designed to become unstable once it does that, because of Geneva Conventions and other ideas. They don't want to do hollow points, so they don't want the bullet to deform, but they want to cause a big wound cavity. So they want, as it hits, they want that bullet to become unstable and tumble. Well, if it hits, probably not a light leaf. Now, some, elephant grass and some other heavy jungle materials and leaves in Vietnam are getting fairly heavy, so that will start things to tumble. But a light leaf really isn't going to do what we're talking about. Really deflect the path of the bullet or slow it down in any significant amounts. Trust me. Standing behind a simple little bush, and even like 30 feet behind a simple little bush, isn't going to materially affect shooting through it. So if you have like a standard garden hedge and there's somebody 30 feet behind it and you know where to shoot, it's still going to go through and hit the person. Even if it hits a few branches or whatever, not going to zing off in wacky directions. But enough of that. In the jungle, some of the jungle environments, film, video, photos, yeah, I can see it definitely deflecting / slowing it down without hitting something solid, like I earlier mentioned, a teak tree. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm personally, and I know, again, we're in the weeds and off topic, but I understand about military logistics. Trust me, I do. And I understand the desire of armies, and particularly the U.S. Army, of having a simplistic supply chain, because mostly, particularly the U.S., but other nations like Britain, often fight very far from home. Hell, fighting in Vietnam, fighting in Afghanistan, fighting in Syria, fighting in Iraq. We're not fighting in, the Texas-Mexico border or somewhere, like Germany is, yeah, it's fighting along its border. Now, its border may be extending into Russia, but they're just putting, at the factory, they're loading ammunition onto a train, and the train goes all the way out here and unloads it somewhere. So, yeah, it may drive a bit further than its close borders, but it's not like putting it on a train, taking it to a port, unloading it from the train, putting it on a ship, taking it on a ship, getting into a port, unloading it in there, put it on a train, go somewhere, take it off the train, put it on a truck drives to the front, then someone at the front picks it up and runs it to the ammunition. You see a lot more steps involved in shipping stuff overseas. So I get the simplistic logic. But because we found, and the U.S. Army has always agreed upon it, that you need something like the .308 caliber round, whether it's 30-06, 308, or maybe they come up with something that's for somehow new or better to replace it. You need that for your machine guns, because machine guns have certain capabilities that you need to have. One of them's range, one of them is a certain amount of penetration through other obstacles, sandbags. They want 2 to 4 foot thick sandbags for a proper U.S. Army bunker, not just like a side angle. If you're laying like bricks, one layer of sandbags that's half a foot to a foot thick. No, they want 2 to 4 feet thick of sandbags to stop a proper cartridge. They want to have that kind of penetration on their machine gun rounds. So if you're supplying machine gun rounds to your troops in fairly large numbers, it isn't that much more difficult to supply rifle cartridge rounds that are the same. And the only real difference is does the ammunition come on linked belts to go through a machine gun like an M60 or Browning 30 caliber machine gun or whatever, or does it come in a box that they're on a stripper clip to quickly load them into a magazine? Well, if you're running around in battalion strength and larger, you can have a little hand cranked machine that quickly does link belts, or delinks it, turn it the other way so you run a belt through it, and it pulls the ammunition out, and you got rifle ammunition, or you're trying to get into machine gun ammunition. So having a 308 rifles mixed in with 223 rifles and light squad automatic machine guns, I think is the best solution. And I think it comes down to a ratio. In some areas like Afghanistan, where your engagement ranges are going to be a bit longer, you're mostly fighting mechanized forces in that most of the U.S. forces are closely supported by MRAPs or other vehicles that you can stick a lot of ammo on, and it's just a 200-300 yard run to go pick up more ammo. It's not a 2-day hike back to wherever to pick up ammo. And you have longer engagement ranges, I think, because of a lot of open fields and a lot of heavy mud brick walls that people can use as cover for 223. Having a higher ratio of 308 rifles, higher ratio, but still have the M16 or M4 carbine, the modern M4, is probably better. Move to a close environment, somewhere like Vietnam, somewhere like if they start operating more heavily in the Philippines, go to a much more higher ratio for the M4 carbine over the M6 over the M14. So I really see it's sort of that's the best solution, because you have, whether it's immediate volume of fire, the M4 carbine is just a 3-shot burst weapon because of poor training, particularly in Vietnam. But, blam, 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 because you can do that, with 3-shot burst, just pop those off, to really do quick fire suppression, or simply boom, 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 wait 5 minutes, boom, boom, with 223, and make your ammo last. You're doing, like, at sort of at a range, you're firing well-aimed shots, but you can carry more ammo, where you're going to run dry with the 308s because you just can't carry as much effectively, because you also have to carry your food, your water, your flak vests, all your rest of your gear, your shovel, because you want to be able to entrench yourself. So you're carrying all that stuff. So you're going to carry a little less ammo for sure when you're talking about 308. And so those guys are going to, if they fire at the same rate of bullet shooting, as a 223 guy, they're going to run out of ammo sooner. So there's good reason for having the M4 carbine and 223 in all the environments, in the wide open deserts and flat plains of Russia, to the most dense jungles or urban combat, because again, like urban combat, in Afghanistan, where it's real primitive buildings outside of the couple of cities that are big, thick adobe buildings, probably your 308s aren't even going to go through a lot of those walls. But you get into a more modern urban city like Baghdad became, your 308 will just punch through the damn wall. You see a lot of the videos coming out of Syria, of the Syrian civil war, and you look at the sort of town sections, because sometimes it's literally like a quarter of the town has become bombed all to hell, because that's sort of the rebels were. You look at the rebels' bunkers when they're going in there. They're going into a regular sort of residential building there, and building a bunker inside of a building, and partially to hide where it is, because from the outside it looks like any other apartment in the apartment building or whatever, but they've got the 2 to 4 feet thick of sandbags and extra beams over the top of it in case they start firing some tank rounds into the building and start bits and pieces start to collapse down on top of them. And so they build in nice little bunkers where and when they can. That will stop the 308, but otherwise, 308 is, they're in that room. Boom, 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 boom. Let me just sort of shoot the wall. Now, I'm not, because they may be laying on the floor, they may be, just missing because you don't know where they are in the room, but you can start putting rounds through the wall that the 223 won't. But the 223, because it's smaller, lighter, is better to do the room clearing. Actually, once you throw, whether it's a flashbang or a grenade into the room, and then burst in there, you're going to do it better with a 223 rifle, quicker, faster, more maneuverable than you are with a 308. So again, I would move the ratio, out in the desert fighting, and there's, especially like in here, we say desert, but there's lots of green areas, but there's also lots of desert, and then there's lots of open areas within thick green areas nearby. So you want that range to shoot the 200-300 yards, to put fire suppressive, onto the enemy, to shoot into areas where you have limited, flashes of people, muzzle flashes that you're seeing of the enemy, even in the daylight, to put fire on them. You want the 308 more of them than you do in the city, but you still want some of them in the city. So, and yeah, I'm still all calculating in the idea of both the squad automatic, a 223 light machine gun, and a platoon or, heavier proper machine gun automatic, because those, even if you're out in the open, yeah, they're doing their job. They're suppressing, but there's probably more muzzle flashes, and the gunner who's shooting at the muzzle flashes over here didn't see the muzzle flashes over here, so the other riflemen that are, capable a little bit longer range are shooting at other targets. So it all comes into play, and trust me, I understand, none of us are, Sergeant York, other than Sergeant York, who's able to snap off all kinds of rifle shots and just hit people extremely well. So yeah, a mix is the right environment, is the right thing. And so yeah, suppression is very valid, and whether it's suppression of a machine gun, and that sort of impacting in your wherever, downrange, and everyone's going for cover, but even the thump 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 coming in nearby of the 308 versus the 223. And I don't want to say this in any sort of, because it wasn't really a dangerous situation, but I've been downrange behind protective cover, because you can go to some rifle ranges that, there's a sort of a bunker kind of thing that you walk below, and they raise the targets up, kind of thing you've seen in some of the older movies, and some of the other stuff where I've been downrange. So they weren't like shooting at me, they couldn't even see me, and they knew that there were people down there, but sort of downrange where the impact is, because I have not been in combat, and I know we have some viewers who have been in combat, but I've been in conditions where I've had like 223 bullets and 308 bullets impacting very nearby me and or passing by me, within feet of my head, within 4 or 5 feet of my head. So I'm hearing the bullets come nearby me. Again, I felt safe because I was well in a protected area, but bullets coming around, and you can readily tell the difference between some 223 that are snapping by you and that are deadly, but if you have a bit of protection, versus the heavier impact. Now, I've never been near. I would love to be protected, but nearby to hear and feel what an impact of a 50 cal round, because I've definitely been nearby 50 cals, going downrange, behind the machine gun or the 50 caliber rifle, the sniper rifles. And those are very impressive compared to regular rifles and machine guns and pistols. Very, very impressive going out. I would love to sort of get the, non-lethal, non-dangerous experience downrange, just to sort of to know what the impact is with the 50 comparatively to a 30 caliber, whatever machine guns. But I think it's very impactful difference, very much so. So again, warfare is a political activity. Politics is, in many large ways, impression. No, what's the word I'm looking for? Didn't get enough sleep last night. Perception. Politics is perception, and so the perception of the dangerousness of your position in warfare, because most people aren't, Japanese soldiers that are been psyched up enough to die, or suicide jihadis. So the perception of the danger of your situation is how much you're willing to put yourself out there to take the combat and not run away. Is all very important. Okay, yeah. Yeah, oh yeah, I know it. Okay, you know how to feel the bullets going over your head. But and now also partially what I'm saying is that I've been near different calibers of bullets coming in at similar times, so I was able to compare them. Where sometimes, at least, and this is one thing that, trust me, I'm not dismissing soldiers' experiences of their service, but a lot of soldiers, at least that I've talked to, a lot of them, have just experienced, say, what they have through their training. Meaning, in the U.S., it's just like, oh yeah, 223 and 308 or whatever. But now, of course, there's lots that now have served in Iraq and Afghanistan that have been shot at by 7.62 by 39, 7.62 by 54R, and so they've been shot at by the different bullets themselves, as well as maybe Deshkas and other things that can compare maybe a bit better than I can. But where I've done a large variety of shooting of a lot of different guns. Now, of course, there's a lot of people, and again, and I don't want to make too much of my experience, but it's definitely in the one, at least from probably the worldwide, but U.S. perspective, in the top 1 percentile of gun experience. There's now that 1%, that means there's more than 1 million other people that have equal to or better experience than I have in America, but it's my experience is fairly extensive with firearms and guns and all that stuff. And that's where I can talk about with well, at least I think with a lot of knowledge and experience compared to artillery. I've been around, I remember as a kid, I don't know, I was definitely younger than 10, going on to a Marine base and being in an automobile nearby, and I guess they were probably 105s going off, and man, that scared the shit out of me. I mean, I didn't literally poop myself, but man, I remember as a kid, and I was young. I don't remember exactly how young. My dad might be able to tell me how young it was because he was there. When they, oh, cool, they're going to shoot the big guns, great. So he'd take me to the base, and we were in the car sort of watching, not that close, but not that far away. And those things, I dropped to the floor of the car, and I was a young kid. And those guns going off, and the shock wave coming through the car, oh God, that really scared the hell out of me as a young kid. And I wanted to be there. I wanted to see it. So that, oh shit. So that's about the closest I've been to any live fire of artillery that one time that I can remember. Yeah, it's close. Now I've been near blank fire a lot. There's like the 1 o'clock gun in Edinburgh Castle goes off at 1 o'clock, and one of the reasons they explain why they do it at 1 o'clock instead of 12 o'clock, they get to fire the gun just once because they don't have to fire it 12 times to signify 12, so they fire it at 1 o'clock every day. 1 o'clock, boom, fire the gun at Edinburgh Castle, and it's a British 25 pounder that's all spiffied up. Some parts of it have chrome plating and whatnot, and it's just they're firing a blank charge out of their 25 pounder every day at 1 o'clock, and I've been within fairly close feet of it, but it sure the hell wasn't like the 105 that I was as a kid, and I was much closer. So it's a much less powerful charge, and that's obviously not even projecting anything but a little paper wadding out the end. So most people, a lot of soldiers have, and I was really young when that happened, but yeah. So okay. I remember one night in a bivouac waking up to a battery opening up in the middle of the night. We didn't know their location nearby. Yeah. So yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots of soldiers that have experienced that, but just being a kid, that was, and I'm sure, because it was all like, it was in, it was at Camp Pendleton Marine Base down here in, sort of Oceanside, California, is where that event happened in my life as a kid. My dad spent a career work as a civilian working for the Navy, so he had pass and access to get onto naval bases, and took me down there one time. Took me down a few times, but one time they were getting ready to do live fires, and it was where military and civilian vehicles on the roadside could pass by, however close that was, and I could remember seeing it as a kid. And the reason I sort of remember it's quite damn young is because when it's going off, and I was like, boom, boom, and I'd go down cowering on the floor of it. So it was fairly close by, and they were shooting. I think it was live fire. It was live fire in that they're firing, the blue dummy, real solid metal projectiles going down range, but no explosive filler to them. Okay, paratrooper breaks through nylon. Paratrooper cost. Improved power grid, efficiency of the base. Okay, modify steel mill output by 1. Yeah, we'll do that. So things like that, and tank gunfire, I have not been around a lot. I've seen a lot on television, but after seeing not Hollywood with sound effects, but actual people firing real guns on, like can go see Forgotten Weapons or see an arsenal, and hearing it versus being next to the actual guns being fired a lot, you don't get the impact of even a rifle round or a pistol round on video that you do in being there in real life. And trust me, I've shot tens of thousands of rounds through pistol caliber weapons, and thousands, if not tens of thousands, of proper rifle. I mean, because we say, grew up shooting 22 caliber, rifles. And that definitely, because that's pistol caliber, but yeah, I've shot probably well more than 30,000 rounds. Yeah, 1,000 rounds, 30 times. Yeah, well more than 30,000 22 caliber rounds. That sounds like a lot. It does, sitting here, but all the years shooting like 200-300 rounds in a weekend. Yeah, I've shot a lot of 22 in my life. So none of that with hearing protection. So I've shot a lot of that kind of stuff, and then a lot less 308 and 30-06 and 7.62 by 39 and 7.62 by 54R and 7.92. Oh yeah, I've shot a lot of that stuff. Oh, cool. Carl Gustav, cool. I've seen videos of those. Oh yeah, oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, I've seen videos of that. Justifying war against us. Why is Germany justifying war against us? I don't know. Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, especially since they're just going to invade Poland and then be at war with us. Well, I think at that note, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, in my stories about my childhood, we're going to end this episode here. I want to thank you all for watching. Thanks for liking. I really do, like I said earlier. I know this hasn't been a terribly long episode, but thanks all for watching. I really do appreciate you guys here. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.